Hey, what's up everybody? This is Osterberg501 and today I want to go over 5 of the best ways you can go about making consistent gold in Lost Ark. And these aren't going to be in any specific order, I just wanted to number them so they're a bit easier to follow. So at number 5, we have Chaos Dungeon Runs. Now I want to try to speed through this a little bit because there is actually a bunch of different ways you can go about making gold from your Chaos Dungeon Runs on a daily basis. So first off, you have your gold and red portals that can spawn after you kill the boss of the Chaos Chamber. Getting either of those will give you a bunch of raw gold drops when you kill that boss or treasure goblin in those. And this is a very good way to make gold if you're someone that has a lot of alts. More alts equals more opportunities at getting these rare portals. And the higher tier you are, the more raw gold you're going to get from these rare portals. Second, you can just sell any of the unbound materials you get out of these Chaos Dungeon Runs. But these materials are going to continue to get cheaper and cheaper as the game gets older and older. And if you go to the other regions of the game, pretty much all the materials you get out of these are at 1 gold per 10. So down the road, they're not going to be a good way of making gold, but they'll give you a little bit extra. Then once you get into tier 3, you could potentially sell tier 3 gems you get out of here. Now, I wouldn't recommend doing this until you have all the gems you need, which is very late game type of stuff. But if you're in a pinch, you need some extra gold, you can sell tier 3 gems from here and make a little bit extra. Then you can also sell the ability stones you get out of here. If RNG is on your side and you get a really well-rolled ability stone, if you get one that has 2 of the best engravings for a specific class, it's going to make you a big chunk of gold. But if it's not a well-rolled ability stone, they're pretty much completely worthless in terms of making gold. And well-rolled ability stones should continue to hold value even later in the game's life. Then once you get into tier 3, you will also start to get armor and weapon pieces that are primarily there for their tripod effects. And if you get pieces with really good tripod effects, you could potentially sell those for a good chunk of gold as well. And those should hold some of their value later down the road, just like ability stones. So if RNG is on your side, you get really good rolls on those, you could potentially sell those for some decent gold. And then you have a small chance of getting engraving books for completing your runs. And once you get into tier 3, you can get legendary engraving books. And these are something that pretty much hold their value or get more expensive later down the road. So these could potentially be a pretty big chunk of gold if you get lucky and get valuable legendary engraving books. If you get, say, heavily used class engraving books or general engraving books such as Grudge, that's going to make you tens of thousands or more gold. But if you get unlucky and get a pretty much unused general engraving book, it's probably going to be close to worthless. Now you're also getting accessory drops while doing your Chaos Dungeons, but these are generally really badly rolled accessory pieces. So unless you get ultra lucky, you're probably not going to make much gold off of these at all. And you do also have a low chance of getting one-off cosmetic pieces, and some of those you can sell on the market as well. For instance, I got one that was a cool looking hat and that sold for about 500 gold. Those seem to be really rare though, but you could potentially make a little bit extra if you just happen to get lucky and get one of those as a drop. And that's the main ways you can go about making gold from the Chaos Dungeons. There are a few more ways, but that's the main, most consistent ways you'll be able to make gold. Then at number 4, we have Guardian Raids, which just like Chaos Dungeons, every character gets 2 of these on a daily basis. And first off, just like Chaos Dungeons, you have accessory items to drop in here. The ones from here are generally not that good of rolls either, so you have to get really lucky to get a decent one that you would be able to sell, but that's going to be pretty rare. Then you can also sell just your dropped materials in here. The Guardian Raids are the main way to get unbound leap stones in the game, but like I mentioned, these are going to continue to drop and get very cheap later on in the game's life, so that's only going to be a very small influx of gold if you want to sell your materials. You can also get ability stones from these Guardian Raids as well, and again, if RNG is on your side and you get a well-rolled ability stone, that could potentially make you a good chunk of gold, because ability stones are pretty much always going to be very valuable, because even if you get a well-rolled ability stone, you still have to go cut it, and you could potentially get incredibly unlucky, and then that ability stone becomes worthless, and you have to try to get another one with a really good roll on it. Then you can also get engraving books from here as well. And if I'm not mistaken, they're a higher chance to get engraving books from Guardian Raids than they are from Chaos Dungeons, but that may be just in my experience. And once you're into tier 3, you can also get the legendary engraving books. So if you're really lucky with those, you can make a lot of gold getting one of the more more valuable legendary engraving books, and those are always going to be very valuable. Then at number 3, we have trade skills. Now currently in the western regions, a lot of the materials you're getting from most of the trade skills are incredibly cheap because there's so many bots. Now they're rebounding in price a little bit because of the most recent changes to trusted accounts and Amazon trying to combat all of these bots and RMTers, but the prices are still really low. But as Amazon introduces more methods of fighting against these bots, banning them, banning RMTers, the prices will start to go up more and more. And later down the line, trade skills are one of the most consistent ways to make gold in the game. Pretty much all the trade skills can make you decent gold. Excavating making you the best gold possible, but you also have tons of possible gold with foraging. The fish from fishing in Korean servers like we've gone over before are like 160 to 180 gold per 100 fish, which are currently like 10 gold right now in a lot of the western regions. But even though these aren't near as lucrative as they are in Korea or Russia, I would definitely recommend you still use up your energy and never let energy go to waste, because saving up all these materials are still going to make you tons of gold later down the line. They're very useful for anything from creating the fusion honing materials to upgrade your gear, to making potions, to making all the other battle items, to learning research in your stronghold. All these materials are going to be very useful. And also, past just the potential gold making down the road, you also want to be leveling up your trade skill levels to be able to get the higher tier passive effects, passive stat buffs, and have the potential of getting the platinum field tickets, which just make you thousands and thousands of gold anytime you get one of those. And later down the road, those platinum field tickets are just going to be a massive infusion of gold if you know how to do them correctly. And then at number 2, we have your weekly Abyss dungeon runs. And later down the line, you'll also be able to make gold in a very similar system to this from your Legion raids, and all the other raids are going to be adding into the game, similar to Argos right now. But all the information I'm going to go over in this video is stuff that pretty much all the player base can do right now, and still vast majority of the player base is not of the eye level to go do Argus, and even if they're 1370, they can only do one phase of Argos. So that's a gold making method that will be much more consistent and common later down the road when we have more raids out and people are at a higher eye level. But Abyss dungeon runs are one of the best ways to make just raw gold on a weekly basis. If you don't know how these work, you can earn gold from abyssal dungeons on 6 characters every week. Now every single one of those characters can run every abyss dungeon 1 time a week, and they will get raw gold for completing every one of those dungeons that they don't heavily over gear. And the higher tier dungeons you go into, the more gold you get. And then once you get into the hard mode of those dungeons, you'll also get more gold from that. And even if you have a bunch of tier 1 alts, you can still go do the tier 1 dungeons with those alts, and you'll still be making a small chunk of gold for every one you complete up to those 6 characters. And once you get into tier 3, the raw gold you're making from those gets a pretty massive jump. So this is another very good method for people who have a lot of all characters, like that type of gameplay. You're going to be able to make a ton of gold on a weekly basis from doing this. And you will also be getting a bunch of engraving recipe books from doing pretty much any dungeon. We'll guarantee you some engraving books from doing them. And then once you get into the tier 3 dungeons, you yourself get some engraving books, which you can possibly get legendary engraving books. And then you're able to bid on 1 or more engraving books at the end of the dungeon, which can also be legendary. So you could potentially win yourself a bid on an engraving book and be able to sell that for gold at the end of the dungeon. Or if you don't win the bid, someone else can bid a bunch of gold on it and potentially give you a decent chunk of gold just for them winning out on the bid. So for the final gold making method, we have your weekly Una tokens. So how the system works is on every single character, you have daily and weekly Una tasks, and these will give you a bunch of rewards on their own. And anytime you complete one of these daily or weekly tasks, your whole roster gets a certain amount of points. And when you get enough points, you're able to claim a chunk of Una tokens. And the more daily and weekly tasks you do and get more and more points, you can keep claiming a bunch of Una tokens up to a certain cap. And with these Una tokens, you go and turn them in to the gold vendor that's in all the major cities. And with these tokens, you can buy 1 of 3 gold containers that will just give you a bunch of gold out of them, and then also give you a chance of getting a bunch of different gold bricks that you use to get a bunch more gold. And the way most people go about spending their unit tokens is they just wait till they have 500, and every time they have 500, they go and buy the biggest gold chest from that vendor, because that will also give you a chance of getting a gold brick that gives you 10,000 gold, which will give you just a massive influx of raw gold. And I think this is the biggest infusion of raw gold into the game on a weekly basis, and that's just in terms of the general economy. This is quite a lot of gold, and we get quite a lot of unit tokens now. I think you can open up 500 chests a week now. If not, it's pretty close to that. And I think they keep raising the amount of unit tokens you can get, because I think in the Korean and Russian servers, they actually earn more unit tokens on a weekly basis, but I'm not 100% sure on how they go about calculating how many tokens they're going to give people for that week. And if you're a more casual player, a tip on how to get all of your unit tokens pretty easily on a weekly basis is to accept the weekly chaos dungeon unit tasks on all of your different characters, because this is content you would normally be doing anyway, and weekly tasks give you a lot more points to get more unit tokens. And if you have a bunch of characters, you can very easily go complete all of these chaos dungeon weeklies and finish up your tokens for that week in a decently quick amount of time. And that's pretty much all the gold making methods I want to go over in this video. And the main reason I wanted to do this is because I have seen a lot of talk around Reddit and the forums about people not knowing how to make gold anymore, because with our version of the game, materials were so overinflated on how expensive they were on the market that most people were just making gold by doing their normal content, getting these upgrade materials, and then selling them all off. At one point people were buying greater honor leap stones for over 800 gold a piece. That's a massive amount of gold later down the road in the game. So as we've seen, the economy has been deflating massively, so people are having a lot less gold, but gold in general is worth a lot more. And these are some of the main ways you go about consistently making gold when our version of the game has settled in more, the markets have stabilized, and we become more similar to the Russian and Korean versions of the game. But that's pretty much all I want to go over, so subscribe if you want to see more Lost Ark or other MMO videos. Leave a like if you liked the video. Leave a comment down below what you guys think about these gold making methods, and thanks for watching.